Joey holds a BCom Honors in Statistics MBA, Diploma in Insurance, and is currently studying for a doctorate in Business Administration. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes up.
Good morning, money people. How are you? How was Chobe yesterday? Okay. So my name is Joey Shumbamini. I'm the Principal Officer of CBZ Risk Advisory Services. I'll be presenting to you on retirement and estate planning. With me here, I've got an expert in financial and estate planning. Her name is Ms. Kumbirai Mandwanza. Can you stand up so that they can see you? Kindly give a round of applause. Thank you. We are based at 59 The Chess. My number is 0776 984 246. Please take it. You may need it. My email address is jshumbamini@cbz.co.zw. Trust me, you may need it. Just take it down. We are a registered risk advisor and insurance broking company. We give advice on life risks. We give advice on non-life risks. We give advice on retirement risks. We offer financial wellness programs to staff members. Financial wellness is about being physically, mentally, and emotionally fit without any financial stress. You must be financially well during your former working time. You must be financially well after retirement. You must be financially well after your death. Can one get financially sick after death? This presentation will answer that. As advisory services, we are not an insurance company. Rather, our role is to give you advice. We fight in your corner to ensure that the risks that you face are adequately covered at reasonable price. We shake insurance companies so that you get the best insurance deal. We thrive to make you happy. Many people, we thrive to make you happy. However, you still meet risks throughout your life journey. Our life journey. Have you seen the worst in your life? If you think so, think of Jatros, that famous guy from Bindura. How many of you know him? Jatros? No one knows exactly what happened to him, but all we know is that Jatros akapinda pamawana. Anus mawana Jatros. Have you heard of that? Someone who went through life terrible times. We don't know what it is, but he is referred to in our language. There's also a tragic story of Horatio Spafford. How many of you know Horatio Spafford? Horatio Spafford? Okay. Horatio Spafford, 1828 to 1888, was a wealthy Chicago lawyer. He had a thriving legal practice, vast real estate across Chicago. He was one of the richest in the USA. I think he was the Donald Trump of the time. At the height of their success, Horatio and his wife tragically lost their son. They had only one son and 4 daughters. They were devastated. In 1871, soon after the death of their son, the infamous Great Chicago Fire struck, wiping out Horatio's real estate empire to ashes. They were further devastated. Horatio decided to send his family, wife and 4 daughters to Europe for a holiday, away from the tragedy. Say, go and have a holiday. On their way to Europe, another tragedy struck, ship collision, which killed all Horatio's 4 daughters on the spot. So he has lost his vast empire, he has lost his son, he has lost his 4 daughters. On his way to Europe to see his devastated wife, Horatio penned the now popular song, "It Is Well With My Soul," Zanaka Moyo Mangu, a song that has transformed billions of lives. It can happen to anyone. What point am I trying to drive here, ladies and gentlemen? What do we learn from Horatio's tragic story? The lesson learned. In life and in business, we plan, but there are certain unforeseen negative occurrences that may affect our life or business objectives. We call it risk. We need to have standby solutions for risks that may strike us in our life journeys. Our life journey is made up of 4 phases with 3 possible paths to destiny. Death, our final destiny is death. 4 phases with 3 possible paths. The first phase, we call it childhood, playtime, learning time. This is where you are learning, you are still playing, you are a bit stress-free because you have people to take care of you. Adulthood, this is the prime time. This is where we are now. We call it productive time. It's prime time. You do what you want. Yeah? You decide to say, I want to go to Chobe or not. How many of you ask for permission from their children to come to Victoria Falls? No one, is it? We are in full control. This is the prime time. Unfortunately, the prime time is very short and exciting. And before you see it, you'll be very too old. The third phase of life is retirement. We call it reflection time. We call it reflection time because this is when you are reflecting. Say, during my heydays, or when I was still FD at, or when you are constantly referring to your prime time. You are now reflecting, and perhaps the only thing that you have with is your business card that says FD, and you're trying to show it that I was once the FD of this company. You are trying to reflect so that if people argue with you, you still have that business card, isn't it? Or we can say I-free 16, so that people, they know that you was there. You are trying to reflect. The last phase is called death. Some people call it end time. Some prefer to call it spiritual time. So there are 3 phases. Either you move from childhood to death, that's path number 1. Or you move to childhood to adulthood to death. Or you move from childhood, adulthood, retirement to death. Which path would you prefer? The longest path, isn't it? But what is happening nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, people don't want to go to the third phase. People don't want to retire. Even in politics, people don't want to retire. It's common. Why are we afraid of retirement? We want to go adulthood. We work until we die. You notice that the level of control of your destiny varies throughout the life phases. Childhood, you have got limited control because perhaps you are born of a poor family, you can't take yourself to a private school. Adulthood, prime time. This is green. This is where we are now. We've got lots of energy. We've got full control of our destination. Retirement, limited control. Yes, you might have money, but perhaps you are old enough to make decisions. You are old enough to make decisions on your own. I mean, like, you can decide to say, I want to go to Chobe. And perhaps your grandchildren ask, they can say no. You have limited control. Because they say he's too old to go on his own. Death, no control. Take note, this is the prime time. This is the time to plan for our future. This is the time to plan for what will happen to our assets after we die. There are only 2 things in life that are certain. As Benjamin Franklin would put it, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Even if you decide to hide taxes by dying, taxes will follow you to the grave and make you broke there. There's no say, now I'm dead. No, maybe Zimra, please feel sorry for me. No. You're still required to pay taxes. Retirement and estate planning. We need to plan for tomorrow. Retirement planning. We need to plan now for what will happen after we pass on. Estate planning. A perfect retirement. Can you see me in that picture? Who can see me? Huh? Not the little boy. Hey, that old man with white beard. And that muscular guy is my son Takuzo and his wife. And those are my children and that's my wife. That's how I visualize myself 20 years from now. Isn't that a perfect retirement? Reality. That's me there. Those are my grandchildren. The day you retire is your first day at work. We call it retirement with hard labor if you are not careful. Employees do not want to retire. We are scared of retirement, but why are we scared of retirement? Why are we scared? You know, we come to HR to say, can I have one more year? Can I have, because I've recently married, you know, you try to marry at a later age to retirement planning. How do you avoid hard labor after you retire? How do you continue to enjoy the same quality of life after we retire, if not better? Investment planning. How do we create wealth and grow real wealth during our productive days? This is our prime time, ladies and gentlemen. Estate planning. How do you protect our wealth so that we don't go with it to the grave? You went with these things. Maybe you was angry, things like that. No, it's poor estate planning. You can't say you were angry and you go with your wealth to your grave. No, it's poor estate planning. Our worries. How do we create sustainable revenue streams to come to us after retirement? Sustainable. That's the key word. What if all my savings are wiped up by inflation? Yeah? The $0 trauma. Let's briefly talk about retirement planning. Retirement planning involves measuring your quality of life today, ensuring that you have sufficient reserves or future income to meet that same quality of life after retirement. Retirement planning is thus a continuous process. As your quality of life improves, you need to continuously increase the reserves and future income. What are the retirement vehicles that are available? Generally, the World Bank recognizes the following three pillars. Company pensions. I'm sure most of us will have company pension, where you contribute a percentage and the company comes in with a percentage. The second pillar, which is recognized by the World Bank, is the government pensions. We are lucky in Zimbabwe that we've got NASA. The third pillar, you should have your own personal savings. This is supplementary. You must have your own personal pension plan or your own personal savings that augment or complement those two pillars. So these are the three pillars. Experience, ladies and gentlemen, so that those who rely solely on the above World Bank three pillars have retired into poverty. It's said. And they are working harder than before. Imagine what happened to those who were saving during the pre-$0 era. All their savings were wiped out by inflation. They are actually working harder than they were doing when they were formerly employed. Employees who rely solely on employer-funded pension schemes risk plunging into poverty soon after they are forced into retirement. The keyword is forced, because you will not be wanting to retire. Over and above the formal retirement pillars, ladies and gentlemen, you need to have alternative retirement pillars. Some supplementary retirement pillars. And the reason why I'm talking to you is, as financial people, you also have influence to your staff members. You might be okay as yourself as the FD. You might have your alternative retirement pillars. But all you need to do is to make sure that we continuously educate our staff members that they also need to have alternative or supplementary retirement pillars. The supplementary retirement pillars that we have, the first one is entrepreneurship. The second one is wealth creation. We'll talk about it. The third one is estate planning. And the fourth one is education. Wealth creation. Set aside funds for tomorrow every month. If you read the book called The Richest Man in Babylon, it says if you can survive on $100 per month, you can still survive on $90 per month and still enjoy the same quality of life. I've tried it, it works. Because some people say, no, my disposable income is still very low, I can't save. No. If you can survive on $1 per month, you can still survive on 90 cents per month and still enjoy that same quality of life. Remember, your risk appetite reduces with age. So the younger you are, the more you should actually take a risk and invest early. For example, you can't say you are at 70, you get your lump sum investment, and then you want to try your luck on the stock market. But if you are 31, like my friend Tinashe from Net One, you can do that. If you are to build a stock market portfolio, start early. Do not invest your lump sum pension in stock markets or try to do experiments and invest in risk instruments at 70, 75. So wealth creation is very critical, ladies and gentlemen. Gradually build your diverse investment portfolio over years, preferably in areas that you understand. Take risk that is commensurate with your age. Whilst in life you are encouraged to grab opportunities that come, do not have an attitude. This is the problem with most of the people in Zimbabwe. Zuta and things like that. And one critical thing that we have observed, it's a practical, is pensioners with properties have been found to be better off. That is given, ladies and gentlemen. Pensioners with properties are better off. Buy properties, be it in high density, low density, or growth point. Buy those properties. These have been found to retain value. Do not wait until retirement to build a retirement home or a house in the rural areas. Yeah? You now want to build a house in the rural areas at 70 years. Kudawashim Sundira, my friend from Tel 1, I was discussing with him yesterday. And we were talking about having a property is an advantage. Don't say, no, this is a high density, I can't buy, this is a growth point. No. Continue to build your own personal property portfolio. You have your own personal financial planner or investment advisor. Do not say, I'm a finance guru, therefore I don't need advice. Just have someone who is independent, who actually helps you to build your own wealth portfolio. Entrepreneurship, this is the second retirement pillar. Some say the quickest way to die is to retire, so never retire. The quickest way to die is to retire, so never retire. What I may say, I'm not saying don't retire from former employment, but create your own retirement job that keeps your mind busy. Suddenly, after work, you have 16 hours to your disposal. Because you no longer have 8 hours at work. So you have 8 hours, and then the other 8 hours, 16 hours, you get stressed. I'm motivated by our former president. He kept on creating things for himself. At 74. No, at 74, he married a young wife. Isn't it? No, he was asked, do you want to have children? He says, no, why not? After his children, he says, no, now I want to see my grandchildren. At 92, he was asked, no, now I'm feeling like I now need 8 more years. Yeah? Creating. So you need to create your retirement job. You need to keep your mind busy so that you don't get stressed, so that you avoid accelerated death. During your prime time, create your own business lines that you enjoy. Most of the times, our attractive remuneration packages are our comfort zones. Like a python, they marvel us, and before we know it, we are too old. Start your own business now and acquire skills for that line of business. Create your own retirement job, consultancy, farming, etc. Do not wait to start a new business venture using lump sum retirement money. You say you get the money, now we are trying to ask for ideas to say you go into a business that you understand and all your money is lost. Education is a retirement too. Lifestyle education. Health living today, or your lifestyle today can be your future medical course. Prime time, isn't it? Goch, red meat, everything, too much beer, everything. It can be a future medical course. So you need to have lifestyle education so that you live well today, so that you have longevity. Education. It is possible to create retirement out of education. For example, you can transform yourself from being an executive to a consultant. With education, you can be anything that you want. Yes, I was talking to young Tinashe of Net One. He was asking me to say, at 31, can I start this program? I said, you are well too young. You can transform yourself from being an accountant to a doctor, whatever. Myself, I'm a mathematician. I don't know how I ended up being a marketer after 35 years. So what I'm saying is education can be used as a retirement too. You need both the formal retirement pillars and the alternative retirement pillars. Formal retirement pillars, the ones that I talked about first, your company pension, your NASA, and your personal savings. Over and above that, you still need to have alternative retirement or supplementary retirement pillars. If you have both of them, you will not be afraid of retirement. Actually, you can go to HR and say, can you not retire me now? Which is very rare, but this is the ideal. After a good retirement, you will die peacefully. Now enter estate planning. There are certain myths about estate planning. Most people think that estate planning is only for the super rich. After all, the ones with vast estates. Most say, I will do estate planning when I'm about to retire. But what if you die today and you never live to retire? As a mathematician, I always say if you have X days left in your life today, tomorrow you have X minus 1 days left. Each day you are subtracting your day to your life. So there's no better time than now to prepare for that day. What is an estate? Put simply, your estate is made up of all your possessions, your car, your houses, your clothes, your personal possessions, debts, even your body parts. Everyone is an estate. Every employee is an estate. Poor estate planning or lack of it will wipe out your estate after you are gone. Estate planning, what is it? Estate planning involves analysis and arrangement of estate now so that beneficiaries and descendants enjoy maximum benefits during your lifetime or after you are gone. A good example in the Zimbabwe setup is the Miku's Family Trust. It's a trust that was created more than 100 years ago. It's an example of good estate planning that benefits descendants and generations and generations and generations. Those who existed in the 1980s, 1978, the bus owners, I'm not going to name their names, that used to be, they were there now. And if you are running your own business, are you envisioning that your great-grandchildren will inherit that business? Or it will stop, or you go with it to the grave? What are the key things that you should know about estate planning? Will. A will is a key pillar to estate planning. A will is a legal document where individuals express how their possessions should be distributed after their death. A will also specifies the person to be in charge of the distribution process executor. Every employee should have a will. How many of us have wills? Yeah? Well done. Can we clap hands for them? If you die without a will, you would have died intestate. They say you have died intestate, meaning that other people or the government will decide for you. This usually causes unnecessary fights, and at times your creditors can take over. So do not die intestate. A will eliminates or minimizes disputes in estate sharing after an employee is gone. It also reduces costs. However, there are inevitable costs that come with dying. Dying is expensive, ladies and gentlemen. What are these terrible death costs? Death cost number one, master's fees. 4% of the gross value of estate. Master's fees are also known as death taxes elsewhere. So, for example, if all the possessions are worth 200,000, your beneficiary will be required to pay US 8,000 in tax. By the way, every estate should be registered by the Master of High Court within 14 days from the date of death, and these are the registration fees. Death cost number two, estate duty. I know most of us, you have more than 2 properties. If you have more than 2 properties, you are required to pay estate duty. Estate duty is charged in excess amounts above 50,000. Only national heroes are exempt from paying estate duty. So I don't know whether there is a. Death cost number 3, conveyancing fees. It is illegal for you to stay or use a deceased person's property without changing of ownership. So to change ownership, we are charged 4%. They are accumulated at 4%, 4%. They like 4%. Other death costs, last expenses, hospital bills, funeral expenses, property valuation costs, family meeting costs, transport. So you find that the cost of dying can easily get to 20% of your estate. If you've got 500,000, it can easily go to 100,000. Which is why if your net worth is 1 million, we encourage you to take a life plan of 100,000 or 200,000 to make sure that your dependents will then take away from that life policy so that they pay the taxes that are required. How do we avoid or minimize death costs? There's no one-size-fits-all. Consult estate planning experts like Kumbere Mandwanza and other companies. The following general solutions are available. You can form a trust. A trust is a vehicle where you can shelter assets. The advantage is trusts don't die, But disadvantaged trustees can abuse also. You can donate or transfer your assets while you are still alive, or buy them in the name of your children, or buy them in the name of your spouse, or whatever. The advantage is that there are no transfer costs upon death. The disadvantage is your children can sell your assets because you thought you were going to die early, and you continue to live. Then you see your children selling your assets, and you are still there. You can take a life plan. This one is a very good one. Life plan gives liquidity for you to pay what? The taxes. Or you can donate to charity if you want. Donate all your proceeds to charity. One thing that you should know is that marriage laws in Zimbabwe, they are out of community of property. So meaning properties belong to the beholder who appears on the ownership document. So you really need to know that. So our estate planning journey, how do you start? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The most important action in life is to start. Start by having at least a will, have a basic life cover, consult financial and estate planning experts. Call us. We are there to invite, we can do a financial wellness presentation to your staff members. We are found at CBZ Risk Advisory Service Center, 59 The Chase. Our email address is cbzriskadvisory@cbz.co.zw. My mobile number, once again, I said you may need it. 0776 984 246. So wish you a happy retirement and a happy life thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take maybe just two questions. Just two questions. Can we have a mic there?
Thank you. Joey, I think it was a good marketing presentation as well. Now, I've got this question for you. When you're looking at the retirement and pension scheme, why are you, or how are you addressing the issues around two items? First, what happened to the decimation of the pension schemes after the dollarization in 2009, and how have you built your clients' balance sheet after that? And secondly, now, how are you dealing with the fact that we have got nostril problems, and how then are you able to create a hard currency asset base for your clients, because you have to place some of your investments offshore? So how are you dealing with those two items?
Can we also have a mic with that gentleman? Thank you.
Hi, Joey. Just wanted to find out from you that if you've got a trust, what's the essence of having a will?
Thank you very much. I'll attempt to answer question one, and then the second question I'll give it to our financial planning expert, Kumbre Emmanuel. Okay, thank you. The issue is what happened to our Zim dollar pension savings. Is that correct? That's the first question. I think what happened, I can acknowledge as an individual to say it was a national disaster. What I can say on behalf of the Life Officers Association is that there is an inquiry, or a government inquiry team that was set up to actually investigate what happened during the convention exercise. And I'm sure the results are out. They will be made public through the relevant authorities. But what I can confirm is that also most of these life companies, they also were invested on the local markets in terms of the treasury bills, etc. That also went under. But again, it says, what does it teach us? we find that the approach that we are taking to retirement planning is that you should have these formal retirement planning, these formal pillars, and also have extra. To say over and above your company pension, considering what happened before to our zinc dollar saving, you also need to have these alternative retirement pillars, which is why our approach is we are now talking of formal retirement pillars and also having alternative retirement pillars, so that at least you will not lose out. At least it's sort of diversifying your investment options. There are companies that, on the investments offshore, there are companies that offer offshore investments. You can actually find them to say you want to protect or have your saving guaranteed. There are local companies that offer those investment options. We can give you the list of them to say you want to invest outside for your future. So thank you. I'll ask Kumbi to take the second question.
Good morning. I think the question was, is it necessary to have a trust and a will, or either? As Joey said earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but I will just touch on 3 points. The first thing is that the transfer of assets into a trust can be a lengthy process, taking into account the costs. The will work as a stopgap measure should something happen. It can take a number of years to transfer assets into a trust. Should something happen to you before you've completed that process, the properties that you haven't managed to transfer will attract estate duty and other death costs. The second is if you have minor children, the trust doesn't address guardianship and that sort of thing. So you would also want to talk to your guardianship of your minor children in your will, which you can't do in your trust. The third is some people have assets outside of the country. Your trusts have jurisdiction. So your Zimbabwe trust doesn't have jurisdiction in South Africa or the UK. So you would need a will that speaks to assets that are out of the country. Even investment assets that you have, not necessarily movable property, but any assets that you have in the country, outside of the country, don't have jurisdiction in Zimbabwe. So you would need a legal document that addresses those issues. I hope that answers your question.
And what about the issue of the Nostro account? Because are you saying that the pension schemes are able to get remittances easier than the rest of the institutions within the country in pursuit of their pension investments?
So I didn't get you. You're saying to get your money out of the country?
Yes, to remit as you buy investment assets outside the country to create a hard currency balance sheet for your pension clients.
I'm not sure that I'm getting your question. You are saying you want to buy assets outside the country, and will you get the
okay,
foreign support?
what I'm saying is, as a pension scheme, okay, to plan for the future annuities which you pay to your clients, you want to place in different diversified investments in hard currency, in soft currencies within the country, outside the country. So I'm saying, how are you managing the restrictions in terms of remittances outside the country as you build your pension asset base to secure the future annuities to your clients?
Yeah, I think obviously with the environment, obviously there are challenges in terms of remitting funds outside the country, but we have companies that have investment vehicles outside Zimbabwe. I think the challenge has been to say there has been limitations in terms of the extent to which we can actually take the money out of the country, considering the challenges for now.
Thank you very much, everyone. I would like to call upon Martha Masaiti to present a gift to Mr. Misuma. Thank you, everyone. I would like to also call upon Sabina from the Med Society. She's a Med Society chairperson to just give us a short update. And after that, we'll get the Deloitte marketing slot, and that will be a video.
Makandinzwani, chainzwa kayo. Thank you, Mukoma Joey, for that very insightful. We all need to be reminded of this now and again. Thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here to apologize for the inconvenience yesterday at the border to and from Batoka. Thank you. I just want to say, you know, we had really tried to prepare this better learning from last time when we went to Chobe. We engaged Batoka Safaris to do the pre-clearance for us, but that did not go well as planned, and we sincerely apologize for that. We know we had to sign the forms when we got there, though we had been given the clearance that they could have done that for us on our behalf. We also asked if we could have the forms when we return on for our return trip, and we were assured that it was not necessary. But when we got there, there was another shift and we suffered another delay. Our sincere apologies for that. And also, I think I need to apologize for the manner that we also handled this on the return trip, the Batoka, when the passports had to change hands, and I think that's not an appropriate manner for accountants. We apologize for that. On the same note, all our passports, I think they will be returned to all of us this morning. From the room where we left, we gave the secretariat if we can all go back to, I think, at tea break and as the day progresses, to collect our passports. Thank you.
Sorry, for all those who haven't registered for golf, it's actually ongoing on the front desk outside. The Deloitte.
Deloitte's purpose is to make an impact that matters for clients, our people, and in our communities. Deloitte serves clients with distinction, delivering measurable, attributable impact. And our audit services help protect investors and the public trust. We inspire our people to deliver value, and we invest in their development as future leaders. And most importantly, we give back to the communities where we live and work. As you would expect, I talk regularly with clients, regulators, and other leaders. Regardless of geography or industry, I hear about common challenges that include globalization, risk, security, and an increasingly digital world. Deloitte is helping organizations translate these challenges into opportunities. For example, we combine global capabilities with local knowledge to help clients thrive in any environment. As clients navigate an uncertain world, Deloitte helps them manage risk and secure their organizations. And as business models are disrupted, Deloitte helps clients leverage technology in order to thrive. I believe that Deloitte is a special place that attracts exceptional people. The brightest professionals choose Deloitte because we offer meaningful opportunities to work on complex challenges to make a difference for clients, colleagues, and communities. We invest in developing our people as future leaders. Deloitte University, with campuses around the world, is one such example of our commitment to lifelong learning. And Deloitte people know that wherever career paths take them, we remain colleagues for life. Deloitte applies broad global capabilities to help address complex social issues and drive change. Both financial contributions and skills-based volunteerism are important. For example, in many areas of the world, Deloitte focuses on educating, hiring, and supporting people that face significant challenges. We believe this is central to the role of business in society. Deloitte believes the greatest opportunity to make an impact is when an organization's core business services help improve society. And we take great pride knowing that Deloitte's services help corporations, the public sector, and nonprofits drive measurable, meaningful change in the world.
Thank you very much. We need to just keep mentioning our sponsors and to just keep on thanking them and show them our gratitude. Liquid Telecoms and Econet, Zimplats, Net1, BDO, Siemens, Fidelity Life Assurance. Can we give them a round of applause? And just in case you've already started forgetting about the estate planning, be careful of retirement with hard labor. Let's avoid it. I would like to call upon the CEO of ICAZ, who's also the past president of the Institute, to introduce our panel. Our next session is on command initiatives, regaining our breadbasket status. Thank you.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call upon the three gentlemen, Morgan Zwere, Kipson Gundani, and Elisha Sindikizo, to come up front. Doug. I'm loading the biodata and it's taking time. Okay, can I also call upon Ron Tandagai to come up? I'm sure you thought he had escaped. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay, as he comes up, I will read Kipson Gundani. He has 9 years of experience in the private sector, largely in economic policy analysis and business advocacy, private sector development, project management, and public-private dialogue He has done and coordinated various projects and programs with international organizations, which include the Center of International Private Enterprise, CIPE, the Frederick Newman Foundation, the International Council of Swedish Industry, NIR, the Zimbabwe Works Commerce Council, Business Council, and Association of SADC Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He was the chief economist of the ZNCC for 6 years and deputy CEO of Buy Zimbabwe for 3 years. He's a fellow of the Program Management Institute of Zimbabwe and also a member of Zimbabwe Economic Society and sits on various government private sector technical committees. Currently, he is the chief executive of CEO Africa Roundtable, a member-based platform of CEOs to champion economic development across Africa. Let's give him a round of applause. As I get to the next one. Okay, Mr. Morgan Zwere is a chartered accountant who holds a master's in business leadership from the University of South Africa and has attended the Strategy Master Academy at the University of Cape Town's Business School and the Advanced Management Program, AMP 181 at Harvard Business School in Boston, Massachusetts. Morgan was appointed Group CEO of Seedco Limited in January 2010, having previously been the group's chief financial officer. As group chief executive for Seedco Limited, he oversees the group's operations across the African continent. He has previously worked for conglomerates in the mining, manufacturing, financial services, distribution, and real estate industries in the sub-region. He sits as a non-executive director on the boards of FBC Bank, TSL Limited, Initiative for Global Development, a Washington-based think tank championing development across Africa. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Perhaps you can lift your hand so they can see who you are. Okay. All right. Okay, next is Ron Mtandagai. He was appointed Group CEO of ZB Financial Holdings with effect from 1st of June 2013. Mr. Mtandagai was previously the managing director of ZB Bank. He joined the group, then known as Finhold Group, as head finance and risk in 2004 and rose to the position of managing director at ZB Bank in September 2009. Ron holds a BIAC degree from UZ and MBL from UNISA. He's a chartered accountant by profession, and he did his articles with KPMG Chartered Accountants, where he rose to the position of audit manager prior to leaving in December 1991 to join Willeville Mazda Motor Industries as general manager in 1992. He joined Standard Chartered Bank in 1998 as company secretary and head of banking services, a position he held until 2001 when he left to join NDH as chief financial officer, where he joined Finhold in 2004. So let's give Ron a round of applause as well. Okay, last but not least, Elisha Sindikizo. He has worked with strong regional and international professionals in the implementation of the project. This is starting from halfway through. But anyway, Elisha is going to be facilitating the next session after this one. Suffice it to say that he's based in Zambia, where his partner and for a power project. And we will read his full CV when he then comes to facilitate. For now, we've heard that the session is command initiatives. I'm going to give my panelists 5 minutes each to just, and then we want to leave more time for discussion. Command initiatives to regain our breadbasket status. In 1980, if you remember, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. So the question is, will the command initiatives take us back or take Zimbabwe back to that position? And to help us unpack that, this excellent panel, array of panelists will speak to that, and we will also have discussion after that. So I'll start with Elisha Sindikizo. If you could come up, please. Or would you like to speak from there? Yes, so you can come and face the right direction from here.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, my name is Elisha Sindikizo. I have no CV. I am based in Zambia, and I'm going to try and do my presentation in exactly 5 minutes. So I'll have to speak from my head. Now, command agriculture, as you know, Zimbabwe has got about 5 million hectares of arable land. And you know what happened after 2000? There was the farm invasion process where the agricultural setup in the country was turned upside down. However, following the farm invasions, the Joint Operations Command of the military instituted the first phase of the command agriculture in 2005, when the first pronouncement was made by then the governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, Gideon Gono. And together with the army and the Ministry of Agriculture, the first command agriculture process was put in place, which was called Operation Taguta, of course. And the main motivation for that was to revive the agriculture, to redress the issues of the farm invasions, because obviously the country now was not producing as it should. As you know, agriculture in a normal Zimbabwean setup, it normally contributes about 17% of GDP and provides essential raw materials for the manufacturing sector. And at that moment, in terms of that phase one, the target was to produce 2.2 million tons of maize on 1.5 million hectares of land, and also the target was to produce 90 million kilograms of tobacco, 210,000 tons of cotton, 49,500 tons of seed maize. And the results of that situation, command agriculture phase one, I mean, we have to agree that it was not as intended. Those objectives were not met. It was a disaster. And I think you agree with that, because the country, instead of having 2.2 million tons of maize, the country was importing maize. we did not have the cotton results as expected, and tobacco had to follow a different route in terms of reviving that sector of agriculture. Then phase 2 came in, which was in 2016, which was formalized through statutory instrument number 79 of 2017, whose main objective was now to say, let's do the command agriculture in a different way through the Command Agriculture Scheme Act, which endeavored to formalize the process. And the major issues about that was to create contract farmers, and it was the aim was to have as many as 50,000 farmers on 400,000 hectares, so that they could aim to get a yield of at least 5 tons per hectare for maize. And the major features of this process was to give inputs in the form of fertilizer, agrochemicals, and also in terms of equipment, and to give training to the farmers so that they would do it in a better way. But also, a major motivation behind the ICAZ Act was to correct some of the problems that had been experienced, like misappropriation of inputs by the targeted farmers, and also to provide some funding and give some semblance of a marketing variable to the scheme, in the sense of saying, okay, we are going to give you inputs, we are going to give you a price which you have to aim to, and the farmers would produce to that. And the results of that, I've got 1.5 minutes now. The results of that, 1 minute, okay. The results of that, I would say it was relatively successful in the sense that you had at least 1.4 million tons of maize, but however, there were problems in terms of misappropriation of the inputs. 10,000 farmers did not deliver to the GMB because of payment delays from the GMB. And also the government, by prescribing a price of $390 per ton, when the import parity price was $220 per ton, created an automatic stress on the fiscus of $118 million for the government, which was at that time already broke. So therefore, there were those problems. And of course, going forward, my view is that first, do not involve the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe in managing economic variables like farming and all that, as was in phase 1. Phase 2, I mean, it is important to plan, provide training of the farmers, provide them with inputs in time so that they can achieve the correct yields. And of course, the fundamentals of the economy have got to be corrected if you want any sectorial development to take place. There's no point in saying we can revive agriculture and the economy if the other fundamentals are not in place. That is your energy sectors, your financial sectors, and other sectors of the economy. Matthew, thank you very much for the short time, but I would have wanted to go on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elisha. I know you could have gone on, and you could even have asked yourself some questions at the end. Okay, next is Mr. Kipson Gundani. He's got a small PowerPoint presentation, but he will still have the 5 minutes. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Like said, my name is Gibson Gundani, and I run a platform called CEO Africa Roundtable, which is a platform of CEOs. So if there are CEOs in this room, you are missing out. You need to belong to the roundtable. So, there. Right. All right. Thank you. The command initiatives, I won't labor into the detail and the architecture of it because the predecessor have already talked what it is about, but I'll go into figures. I've got the 2016-2017 and the 2015-2016 season figures there. The 2017-2018 figures that I have are not verified, so I've deliberately removed them for the fear of misleading people. As you can see, the planned hectarage under command agriculture for maize there increased from 773,000 hectares in 2015-2016 to more than 1.2 million in the 2016-2017 season. The same applies. You can see an upward trajectory for all the major grains: maize, sorghum, pure millet, finger millet, groundnut, soybean, and so forth. And just to illustrate the importance of agriculture in the overall economy, this is the fragmented contribution of each product to the overall agricultural input into overall economic growth. And you can see that the biggest player there is tobacco. Why tobacco? Why tobacco? It is mainly due to the marketing architecture of tobacco, which does not exist in many of the rest of those products. The agricultural sector is projected to grow by more than 20% in 2018, and the growth is mainly driven by major crops such as maize, cotton, tobacco, livestock, and milk production. And the Command Agri scheme has seen total land contracted under the scheme reach around 246,035 hectares, with a total number of 36,472 farmers. The planted area of maize rose by 61%, like I said, from the 2016 season to the 2017 season, and this continues to increase. The same applies to Command Livestock, which has been recently launched. I think the Command Livestock will see, or have seen, the national herd grew from around in 2002, it was around 6.4 million cattle, and that had seriously reduced. And the aim or the target was to reach 5.4 million heads of cattle again by 2017, which has not been achieved though. And you discover that the bulk of this herd is actually in the communal lands. So the Command Livestock is mainly focusing the communal farmers of beef. The livestock is a significant contributor to the same economy, and it was also very serious linkages with the crop side, particularly the maize production as a source of the feeds. And the favorable rains in the 2016-2017 season, you had seen agriculture actually prompting or accelerating beef production areas. The same applies to wheat production. This country consumes around 400,000 tons or to around 450 tons of wheat annually, and the Command Agriculture intends to capacitate mainly the winter wheat production. At its peak, wheat production in Zimbabwe was around 325,000 tons in 2010, but that had dropped seriously to around 10,000 tons in the 2014 season. That's how serious it is. And the Command's wheat production intends to reverse that negative trajectory. That is about wheat production. So a total of US 140 million is required to support around 70,000 hectares of wheat production, which would translate to around 350,000 tons at an average yield of 5 tons per hectare. What is important there is the yield per hectare. That target will not be achieved if we are not productive per hectare. And this self-sufficiency will curb wheat flour imports, which have since been removed from the open general import license through the famous SI 122. Let's look at maize. By achieving our maize self-sufficiency, this country will be able to save around 15 million annually in terms of import cuts as maize. And the total benefit of the value of maize that would have been produced will equal to around 529 million there. And you shall see with the bulk of that man, about 50% is the value that is consumed at the household, and about the other 50% is commercial maize. You can see, I won't talk about tobacco because it's debatable, it may not be food, but livestock there, you can see that about the volume, about if we hit about 5.4 million tons or heads of cattle, that will translate to a value of more than $1 billion. So this is a gold mine, really, when you talk about its contribution to economic growth. Maize, like I said, up to 50% is sold, up to 50% is consumed by households, generating around $156 million for about 1.6 million households. And this translates to around $97 per year per household, which translates to around $7.8 per month per household. The figure may seem very, very, very low, but we are mainly talking about communal guys here, people that are in the communal land. At least they'll get funds to send their maize to the grinding mills and be able to buy cooking oil. So it's a plus, owing from where we're coming from, where we're importing the bulk of this maize. But I want you to compare with the tobacco there. Tobacco is about 1,000 growers, but they generate about $585 million to around which translate to around 7,000 per grower and to around $600 per month per family. You will discover that why is tobacco contributing more to the welfare of households as compared to maize? The explanation is in the value chain. So maize production alone should be linked or should be deliberately linked to the commercial industries for it to be able to generate significant reward to the producers. And more importantly, I think it is also deliberate that we allow market forces to play in that regard. I'll be able to share this presentation with people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure you'll be, as we ask questions, you'll be able to explain more about what he was going to end up with. At this stage, may I call upon Ron Mtandagai? And Ron, if you could, during your address, also cover whether are we moving forward with these command initiatives.
Thanks very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think the history has already been spoken to. I'm not going to repeat that. What I'll go on to what we see as the key lessons that have come out of command agriculture and the land issues generally. I think I'm of the view that land tenure, despite the 1990 leases, needs to be dealt with. I'm of the strong view that if people own their land, they are able to do a lot more with land as far as that is concerned. I think the other point I just want to make also is around finance. Command agriculture has come in to fill a gap where banks have not been able to offer long-term money at affordable interest rates. So in effect, what Command has done is to disintermediate banks. We think that long-term, I think we need to go back to the proper system of funding agriculture, which is what we've always done in the past, which is through private bank finance. And our stop order system also needs to be made a lot more effective in terms of recovering the funding that would have taken place. I think just going back to the issue of whether Command has helped, I think it has helped as an interim measure. As I said, skills had disappeared finance was a bit difficult to come to, and you needed an organized method of trying to make agriculture work again. So from that perspective, I think it has been extremely useful. There are areas where it has been proven, you know, in maize, livestock production, and in areas like Matopo, research has been done, which points to the issues around command. I think an important point around agriculture generally is access to markets. As you see, a lot of our produce, you know, being perishable, is being sold along streets and highways. And I think we need to also come up with ways and means of dealing with that. Value addition, I think we are also selling our products probably as they are. And, you know, it's absolutely important to ensure that we do have a value addition to those crops. I think we need smart support systems, extension advice, and market support through IT applications. I think with the ubiquity of mobile phones now, we must be able to move to the higher level. Irrigation, I think, is absolutely important when you're talking about command. We need to make sure that where water is available, irrigation infrastructure is put in place so that we just don't depend on rain-fed agriculture, but we can plan appropriately. And that will also result in output being improved. Appropriate mechanization. I think we're used to the big MF tractors and John Deere and all sorts. For those of you who may have read Reverse Innovation, what is happening now is tractors are being made smaller to allow the small households that are now the order of the day in agriculture to be able to afford them. Certainly there are suppliers in this market now who are supplying very small tractors at a cost of below 10,000 US dollars to allow us to be able to assist farmers in that nature. I think I'll probably stop here and then we can debate a lot of the other questions a little later. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ron. I'll call upon Morgan. Morgan, maybe just to give us, make an overall comment in view of the presentations before we open up to questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. You see, I think there's a lot of debate about whether we should be doing command agriculture or not. But I think what it is we will all remember someone once said, hungry stomachs are more dangerous than minds full of political ideas. It's essential issues to do with politics of the tummy. And I think in any nation, state security begins with food security. So it then becomes imperative that the government addresses the issues around food security before they can look at any other activities. When you look at what has been happening in Zimbabwe and then you look at what has been happening in the region, if you go to Zambia, for example, they have what they call the Farmer Input Support Program, which targets about 1.5 million people every year. If you go to Malawi, they also still have the same government-funded program targeting between 1.2 and 1.6 million families. You go to Botswana last year and the year before, they had what they called ISPAD, which was also targeting a number of families so that they could increase their productivity. If you read the Washington Post sometime this week, Donald Trump was talking about setting aside $12 billion to help the farmers in the United States, mainly around the issues of providing markets for their products and buying excess production and so on. So when you look at Zim, it's not really isolated in terms of trying to support agriculture and in terms of trying to push the volumes. I think the earlier speakers have also indicated that when you look at the productivity, if you look at 5 years ago versus what we are now producing, you find that 5 years ago we probably were producing around 500, 600,000 metric tons of maize. This year, the latest estimates are around 1.7 million tons. Historically, we've required about 2.1 million tons of maize, which was 1.8 million for human consumption and 300,000 for livestock consumption. So you can actually see that the gap is slowly being covered. The issues to do with pricing, whether the 390 is sustainable or not, I think, it's also debatable because when you look at the value of money in Zimbabwe, there are a lot of transaction costs to turn that 390 that you are paid into real money. At what price do you discount it at to now compare it with other markets? You might say, hey, maize is being sold for $200 in Zambia or other countries. But we all know that the $390 that we are talking of here is a debatable 390. When you convert it to real money, what is it? So for me, I think the important thing is when you look at the volumes have increased. We are now able to save some significant forex by producing locally. We must remember that agriculture employs 70% of the people in the country. We must remember that when you look at industry, almost 60% of the raw materials that go into our industry are coming from agriculture. When you look at exports in terms of volumes, 45% of the exports that we are doing are coming from agriculture. And in terms of GDP contribution, you probably are looking at between 15 and 20%. So I think it's an important lever of the economy that needs some intervention, and the debate can be whether there are improvements that can be made to it. But I think it's an important strategy that can help us in some respects to get back to our breadbasket status. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Morgan. Right. It seems from the presentations from up here that there is some concurrence that the command initiatives are doing good. But let's hear it. Let's open it up to you for questions to our experts here. Do we have the mics? Should we continue? Yes, over there. And the middle row here. You have the mic, you can shoot.
Thank you, Mr. Kulanga. I'll ask a question in two parts, but related. Based on the statistics presented on wheat and on maize, what is the reason for the low yields on wheat at 5 tons a hectare and on maize at 5 tons a hectare? And what is being done to address the yield per hectare?
Okay. Panelists. So Zambia to Zambia. The person asking the question is from Zambia, and the one answering is also from Zambia.
Maybe let's save someone from Zimbabwe to answer that.
No. You carry on.
Okay. All right. Now, I think the target was to achieve 5 tons per hectare, and 5 tons per hectare was not achieved. And the main reasons why the target yield could not be achieved, first, the weather was not right in the past season here in Zimbabwe. So because the majority of the command agriculture was targeted for rain-fed maize production as opposed to irrigation. Obviously, because the irrigation farming is limited by mechanization and funding of the equipment. So there was weather variables which affected that, and also the delay in the supply of the inputs to the farmers. And third, there is need to train the farmers in terms of agronomy, so that they've got the agronomic skills in order to improve the yields. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mine is a question of how sure are we that these command style models, how sure are we that they're going to work? I'm asking this question on the background of history of the world. We know the Chinese, the Russians actually tried to do these kind of models back in the days. But somewhere along the lines, they actually switched to the more capitalist model. Are we not better off as a nation to allow the private sector to lead these initiatives while the government comes in to just probably regulate and create a fair playing field? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's a great question, because it then tests the sustainability of the command agri kind of arrangement. From my own persuasion, I think command agriculture was necessary as a stimulant to try to start to produce again as a country. But going forward, I think even if you look at the pricing model, though he says it's debatable on whether the value is so much, you can really tell that it will come to an implosion somehow, because that is not sustainable. Who is funding the gap between the official market price and the price that is given to them? Who will continually fund this command agri initiatives and so forth? So you will discover that apart from other products like tried and tested market models like tobacco, which is more yielding, more rewarding, more structured, purely driven by private capital, you can see that it is a sustainable model as compared to maybe the command arrangements around maize, livestock, and soybeans. However, the critical point, this was necessary as a stimulant, but I think we need to modernize the arrangement. We need to further develop the arrangement in order to allow market forces to come into play and allow private sector to freely flow into it, after creating obviously an enabling environment to that effect.
Thank you.
Could I just add very quickly? I think the finance arena had been disintermediated. If you look at bank deposits at the moment, RBZ statistics indicate that bank deposits are all transitory, which means that we were not able to lend long-term money. I think what's needed in agriculture is, one, water conservation through the construction of dams. That requires long-term funding, irrigation equipment, so that you don't depend on rain-fed agriculture. But also, for those of us that drive around the main highways, fencing is absolutely critical. It's important for you in terms of disease management, and also just making sure that properties are managed appropriately. So because of the fact that your funding model was not able to sustain the long-term requirements, I think command to that extent is absolutely important as an intervention. But yes, I do agree with Gibson. Long-term, I think we would like to make sure that markets are used to allocate resources. Thank you.
I think maybe if I could also just add that, the devil is in the name, the fact that it's called command agriculture. But when you look at what's happening in our economy, look at the banks, for example, look at the profits that they are reporting. All of them are making profits from treasury bills. In my view, that's command banking. You look at every aspect of the economy at the moment where the government is not involved. People are struggling because in any economy, quite often, the government is a major player. And I think the name might actually be what causes the problem. But going forward, I think there will still be a need for farmers to be assisted in one way or another. The issue of price, like I said, but the farmers, I think they also need some form of incentive. So we've got the export incentive, which is targeting exporters. Almost every industry has got one form of incentive or another. And in a way, you could also look at the price that the maize growers are getting as some form of incentive. But again, it just depends on how you see it.
Thank you. I'll take the last question. We have run out of time, if there is. Danny?
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
All right. I would like to say that we are appreciative of the results that have resulted from the initiative of Command Agriculture so far. But I think we also need to think of the future. How much is the government investing in things like research in order to improve the farming methods that we are using currently. Because as of now, I think we are nearly at the same place where we were before the agriculture sector went down. So I think as a government, the government also needs to invest in research and also to address some of the issues which right now we may be getting results but may become a problem in the future. For example, the communal farmers, most of them, they are using wood to cure the tobacco. It's going to result in another problem in the future. Of course, now we are getting the forex and the like, but we are also creating another problem which may need to be addressed. So I think in all these long-term goals need to be set also, and policies to be put in place to ensure that everything is balanced.
Okay, thank you for that. We come to an end. I'm sure I would have wanted to discuss this more and more, including command banking, which were not included. Can you give my panelists a round of applause? Back to the MC.
Thank you very much for the session. I would like to call upon the following people to give our panelists tokens of appreciation. Yeukai Viriri, Rumbidzai Chipurura, Tapiwa Mutije, and Helen Pema. Please could you come forward to present our token of appreciation to the panelists. Thank you very much. Our next session is the CPZ marketing slot. If there's a representative of the CPZ to come and do the marketing slot. And also please remember that you need to do the evaluations on our mobile app. Can we do all the evaluations of the sessions on the mobile app?
So an accountant goes into a pet shop to buy a parrot. The shop owner shows him 3 identical parrots on a perch. The parrot on the left costs $500, says the owner. Why does that parrot cost so much? Asks the accountant. It knows how to do complex audits. How much does the middle parrot cost? He asks. That one costs $1,000, replies the shopkeeper. It can do everything the first one can, plus it knows how to prepare financial forecasts. The accountant asks about the third parrot. That one costs $4,000, he says. So what can that do? He asks. To be honest, says the shop owner, I've never seen him really do anything, but the other 2 call him senior partner. No, the senior partners work very hard. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Kumbi Mandiwanza, and I'm with CBZ.
From days of old, we have been partnering you for success. We've moved mountains with CBZ Touch that has brought convenience to everyday banking. My Life Combo, which has made life assurance more accessible to the average individual. And Smartsurance, an innovation that has made paying insurance so much simpler. Now we bring you the next big thing in retirement planning and life assurance. With innovative plans that include group life assurance, retirement savings, the preservation fund, and smoothed bonus investment, we are on a serious mission to take the tension out of pension. Welcome to the future of retirement planning. Talk to CBZ Life today. CBZ Life, partners for success.
There are two facts that we will all face in our lifetime. It is a fact that one day you will die. But it is also a fact that with CBZ Life, you can plan for your death with our will drafting and trust formation services to ensure that you're able to leave a lasting legacy for your family. With our estate planning services, we help you draft and lodge your will. We also facilitate the formation of trusts and the transfer of the assets thereof. It is also a fact that with our CBZ Life Plan, our Access Life, you are able to give your family the insurance that they will be provided for should you pass on. A lump sum payout can provide for loss of income, pay off your mortgage, as well as settle the dreaded death taxes to protect your estate. You guys work hard, and after all, you wouldn't want your hard-earned assets falling into the wrong hands. The CBZ Life Plan ensures that your family can continue as though you were still alive and make sure that you can settle any and all estate costs. It is also a fact that one day you will retire if you don't die first. With our CBZ My Pension and our Preservation Fund, you can grow your retirement savings. With your funds invested in our smooth bonus investment portfolio, you are guaranteed capital growth that you won't lose. So whether you have transferable existing pension benefits from previous employment, whether you want to augment or start your retirement savings, from as little as $20 a month, we have something for you. The fact, ladies and gentlemen, is that one day you will die or you will retire, and we have something that we can help provide for your family. Please visit our stand in the foyer or chat with myself, Joey, or Joel to partner with us and ensure your success. Thank you.
Thank you, CBZ. We need to continuously be grateful to our sponsors, who I'll be mentioning them as we're going. First Mutual Life, Grant Thornton, OK Zimbabwe, PwC, Seedco, and KPMG. Can we give them a round of applause? Remember yesterday we were using the response pad to do the voting. ACIT is actually now offering a 20% discount on their device hire fees to all conference delegates. And they're asking that all those who are interested to drop their business cards and register their interest at the ACIT desk outside. The discount will be for events held on or before the 31st of December 2018. I would like to introduce our next speaker, and that is Professor Love Mombiki. Professor Love Mombiki was born in Zimbabwe. He holds an MBA in Strategic Management from Northeastern University, which was Boston in the USA, as well as an MBA specializing in Public Management from the University of Zimbabwe, as well as a PhD in Management. He is a Professor of Business and Public Management at Woburn Business School, as well as a Professor of World Religions at Living Waters Seminary. Professor Mbiki has taught at Wits Business School and has been a professor at Rhodes Business Schools and the School of Business Leadership at the University of South Africa. He has been a scholar in residence at the Leadership Center at Morehouse College, Atlanta, USA. He is now based in South Africa and Atlanta. He is a well sought after speaker on political issues, globalization, leadership, development, and organizational entrepreneurship. Can we give him a round of applause as he comes up?
I have been called upon to talk about the turnaround of state-owned enterprises in Zimbabwe. The topic cannot be discussed without discussing issues of national governance. You can't divorce the two. But one of the key requirements that has to be done in terms of turnaround is that there has to be a habit and courage to abandon things that are not working. I think Zimbabwe has that problem. And also to be able to sustain things that are working. So it's very important for state enterprises to do that. For example, the strategic models that are being used currently by state-owned enterprises in Zimbabwe are no longer relevant because after the 2008 global meltdown, some new strategic models appeared. For example, the 6D framework becomes a key strategic tool in terms of planning, in terms of strategic thinking. What do we mean by that? If you are not, for example, digitalized, it doesn't matter where you are, whether an individual, a country, and a company, you will not survive. The second D is if you don't indulge in a habit of disruptive innovation, you are not going to survive. The third is if you don't demonetize, because most services in Zimbabwe are overpriced, you also won't survive. The fourth D is that if you don't dematerialize, you also won't survive. The fifth D is that if you don't democratize and empower people on the ground, you are still, language is very important, language. In terms of the Wuffian hypothesis, language determines thinking. So if you are still talking of command banking, command agriculture, then you have a big problem. Then in whatever you do, there is no such thing as instant success. Research shows that the first liquidity celebration in any initiative will come in the 7th year. So if you have a microwave mentality in terms of planning, then you have a problem. Parastatals will not thrive no matter how efficiently they are managed unless there is a clearly understood model of state or a vision of a state. If I look at the current transitional president, he has done a lot of things, but I think the omission that we must address is that there is no vision. What kind of a state, what kind of a country do we want to have? The key winners in Africa and elsewhere have a state model or vision called a developmental state. An example of a developmental state is China. There's China, there's Malaysia, there's Singapore. All those are developmental states. And we don't need to go overseas. Botswana is the most successful developmental state in Africa. Take one of our biggest economies, South Africa. South Africa has roughly foreign exchange reserves for 3 months. Botswana is 3 years. It's one of the few governments that does not owe anyone money in the world. So we don't need to go to China, we don't need to go elsewhere, we can just visit Botswana. Here are the key elements of developmental state. One is that the state must intervene in the economy. It cannot be a spectator of development. It should be the main entrepreneur for all other forms of entrepreneurship to work. The state also relies on state-owned enterprises as the engine of development. And the role of the parastatals would be to go into areas where the private sector is afraid to go and invest. The parastatals also, one of their key roles is to develop capacity in terms of human resources. It's also to capture a major market share in whatever sector they are participating. It is not true that parastatals have an ordained destiny of being inefficient. It's a choice that a government makes. Because if you take one of our most competitive banks, is Standard Bank. Standard Bank is owned by the Chinese government. And I think those who are in the banking sector know that it's a very competitive bank. But the governance of parastatals are very important in terms of having public trust. One of the things required, for example, if you take Singapore, is to form a super parastatal that will participate internationally. But it has to be chaired by the president or his nominee. The best example in Singapore is the Temasek model. It was a super parastatal, and what you normally do is that each of the parastatals will contribute assets to it. It will also have private sector international partners who trade in the international markets, but it's always controlled at home. And that goes a long way to raise money. Then the money you get, the president can then distribute it in terms of the needs and the priorities of national planning. Temasek started with 2 billion, then they went to 5 billion. I think today they are sitting at 160 billion. For a population of 5 million, that's not a disappointing result. So parastatals are very critical in terms of a turnaround strategy. Part of it, of the work for Zimbabwe is already done. For example, in the area of agriculture, we have ADA. So we need to go back and re-stimulate parastatals like other GMB, Cotton Marketing Board, cold storage. And in terms of a developmental state, Zimbabwe pioneered it at independence, well documented in a document published in February 1981 called Growth with Equity. In fact, the father of modern China, Deng, visited us in the early 80s and picked us our model and did it better than us. So we don't need to reinvent a developmental state, the role of parastatals. We just have to revisit growth with equity. And the thing about growth with equity is that it was not driven by political slogans. The government set up a thorough research, a commission led by Roger Riddell, to say what kind of an economy or state do we want to create in the next 10 years. The average growth up to July 1990 was 11%. So if we did it before, we can recover that memory. And we can do it again. But I think what has interfered with Zimbabwe is not so much of corruption, it's not so much of sanctions, it's lack of leadership accountability. Khan used to be a deputy minister in Obama's administration, wrote a very unusual book on how to rule the world. He argued that although China does not have democratic rules and democratic elections as we are, they are more democratic than us. Because in China, leadership accountability improves as you go higher. So the rules apply more to the leadership. The senior you are, the more you must set an example. Then he paused and said, the problem with some countries in sub-Saharan Africa, like Zimbabwe and South Africa, is that when you reach a certain position in the party, you are above the law. So what am I saying? I'm saying if we are going to turn around parastatals, the whole issue of leadership accountability becomes very important. The second one is that the governance structure must be in place. In terms of how you set the board, what kind of model of governance are you following? As a general rule in the region, they use the King's Report, or King's Reports as a governance framework. So there are choices. You can follow the German model. The challenge then that the parastatals will have is that we have a shareholder model that is well enshrined in the Companies Act. So the issue of stakeholder model, which is what the King's Report is all about, is not enshrined in law. So at some point, if we go through the stakeholder model, we have to harmonize the two and enshrine it into a law. One of the problems also of state-owned enterprises in Zimbabwe is that the directors are not well paid. Yes, your non-executive directors are not well paid. So they don't do their work, they just come there, drink tea, do very little, and they just do some political gossips, then they go home. So, because it's a serious thing to accept directorships in a company, because when they fail, you should actually be prosecuted. But here, if a parastatal doesn't perform, you still get your salary increase. So there has to be a lot in terms of governance if we are going to succeed. But also there is a need to learn intelligently and copy intelligently. So I would argue that one of the key systems that we have to put in parastatals, if they are going to perform, is to have a very important benchmarking system. Whom do we actually benchmark against, or whom do we copy from intelligently? Because part of our challenge is that we don't seem to copy intelligently. We are very good at copying things that are not working. Is to then identify for this parastatal, this will be our benchmarking partners. And we exchange, our managers go there, they copy whatever they can. Normally a benchmarking partnership can cost as much as $5 million. It's not free. No company is going to give its secrets freely. The last thing about benchmarking about parastatals is that there has to be a performance management system at every level, including the front line worker. The best model at the moment going around in most state-owned enterprises is the balance scorecard, first pioneered by Robert Kaplan and David Norton. So what we are saying is there has to be a high investment in developing systems. Fukuyama, in his latest book, argues that the difference between China or Asia and Africa is that when the West went to the East, they invested a lot in systems and building institutions. Because it is institutions, government institutions, that will drive development. But when they came to Africa, before the discovery of minerals, they thought, why should we invest in establishing institutions? So they chose a cheap indirect rule through chiefs who were not paid. They were given a copper watch that they wore yearly, and that was that. So the few institutions, for example, that we inherited, the parastatals we inherited at the moment, were not meant to develop the majority. They were meant to serve the white minority. And that's a challenge. So what we are saying is there has to be an institutional building mentality in political key role players. And also to realize that the current parastatals were not meant to benefit our own people. So they need a very different strategy if they are going to work for the majority. So institutional building is critical if the parastatals are going to work. The other is that there has to be a deliberate investment in change management. Darwin argued that the species that survived were not the most intelligent, but they were the most responsive to their changes in the environment. I don't think we are responding adequately to the challenge of globalization. So, to turn around parastatals, we need to invest in transformation management. So I think with those few words, I would like to wish you well in your democracy-less elections. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Mbiki. If we will take a few questions, maybe 2 questions. Oh, there's a question. Could you have a mic?
Democratization. What was the 6th D?
I said deceptive growth.
Thank you.
Because a liquidity celebration normally occurs for any initiative in the 7th year. So if you start a parastatal today, don't expect it to be profitable. It will only be able to pay its way if you are lucky in the 7th year.
Any more questions? Another question? I can actually hear someone saying it's very difficult to ask the professor. There's actually two questions. We'll take the 2 questions.
Sorry, Professor, what did you mean by our democracy-less elections?
We invest, so I think the most miserable moment in Zimbabwe is the time of election. But I don't know, I've never seen them producing any democracy. So we might as well not have them. You know, because the results are known before the election. I can predict, are we voting on Monday? I can predict it's ZANU that will win. Whether we like it or not. Suppose the unthinkable happens, ZANU loses, they will not hand over power. That I can tell you. They will ask for a rerun, recount, and so forth. But the one thing they won't do is to hand over power. Sheikh under Diop, his well-known work is the African origins of civilization. He said that it's very important that an army focuses on protecting the constitution and the people. But the day the army leaves its barracks to command the society that they are meant to protect, various things happen. and they are not necessarily welcome. So hopefully the army will go back. I haven't seen that. There are too many positions in Zimbabwe occupied by former generals. And that's not, doesn't inspire hope.
We'll take the last question.
Hello? Hi, Professor. Hi, Professor. Can you comment on the role of culture and national value system in the development of a country?
Culture plays a key role. Chinese do business in a Chinese way. The Germans do business in a German way. The Nigerians do business in a Nigerian way. The Indians do business in an Indian way. The Americans do business in an American way. We are born, one of my favorite cultural theorists is Gadama. Belongs to a branch of philosophy called hermeneutics. But basically, what hermeneutics talks about is that context determines meaning. So to have meaningful business relationships, there has to be some cultural element in them. There's no such thing as universal ways of doing business, or even universal ways of governance. Culture always mediates.
Yes, sir. The reason why I'm saying that is that you as academics, I think we are not putting so much weight in culture and national value system to drive the future growth of the country. And advice, whether to government or to anybody else, appears to be lacking. We appear to be living the lower rungs of the ladder and actually going on the middle of the ladder.
I accept your criticism because our universities have abandoned research. If you take Smith's government was a government of farmers, and they made sure that in every province they had a research station. So the one thing that we have not done, you see, knowledge production has 3 phases. It's like any economy. Your first stage is data gathering. The second stage is the creation of theories. The third stage is giving practical guidelines to policymakers and practitioners. So as a general rule, as African scholars, we don't participate in creating theories and practical guidelines. We are just at stage 1. So knowledge production and management is very poor in post-colonial Africa. There is a whole discussion by Pauline Otonji. He's a professor in Benin on that discussion. But his latest work is in search of meaning. So I agree, we have become parasites of the societies that support us.
Thank you, Professor. May you please comment on on your view of the role of democracy in the development of Africa? I think there is new literature, there is a new kind of thinking. I'll quote Dambisa Moyo, who thinks Africa needs benevolent dictators, and she points to Kagame as an example and the development of Rwanda. So what's your view on that?
I think what Kani said on how to rule the world, the issue is not elections, the issue is not democracy. It's leadership accountability. So any political system, irrespective of the label you give it, can work, provided that there's leadership accountability. There is China. When last did you hear a Chinese leader being bribed? It's always them bribing others. You know. And in Africa, Mandela set the example in terms of accountability. Becky did it. Then things went very wrong with Zuma. So hopefully the current billionaire, maybe the first billionaire president in Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, might correct it. Another.
Thank you very much. We won't be taking any more questions, unfortunately.
Just give them 10 more minutes. Thank you. Thank you.
I apologize, Professor. Thank you very much. I apologize. I have a very difficult job at the moment. I would like to ask Sabina to present a token of appreciation to the professor. And I just want to mention to the professor that one day I wish to speak without any aids whatsoever. He walks with no pen or nothing. He's speaking from his head. In the interest of time, we're actually supposed to be having our tea break in terms of time, but we'll then do the next panel session, and then we'll take the tea break right after the panelists. I would like to introduce Mr. Elisha Sindikizo to come forward. He will be the moderator for the topic, Price Hikes. Is it pricing madness or a response to reality on the ground? Just to introduce him, he's a Zimbabwean and working in Zambia for the past 18 years. In 1989, he joined a subsidiary of the London Stock Exchange listed a group as a finance manager. In 1994, he joined Trans-Zambezi Industries Limited as the Group FD for Chloride Central Africa. In 1999, he was appointed the finance director of Turnell. In 2000, he joined CTC Group in London, formerly Commonwealth Development Corporation, and was subsequently seconded to Zambia as the CFO for the agro and milling operations of the CTC in Zambia. From 2003 to 2005, he was leading an acquisition investment transaction involving the takeover of the largest pharmaceutical manufacturing company in Zambia. He is a founder, a shareholder of the and CEO of Lunzia Power Authority Limited. He has a very glowing biography. Please could you then introduce the panelists? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, you have heard the topic which we are going to discuss is with our panelists. I'm going to invite the following people to come forward. Sifela Njawangwe, John Mangunja, Rosemary Siachitema, Denford Mutashu, and Saviors Mushosho. These are going to be our panelists on price hikes in Zimbabwe, and is this madness or is it justified? Now, I'm going to depart from the norm because I would like the session to be as interactive as possible. So our panelists, as you take your seats, please, I want to give the audience as much time as possible to ask questions so that we can discuss them. Sifelani Jawangwe, if you can raise your hand so that the audience can see. Yeah, that's Sifelani. Sifelani is the current national president of CZI, and he is married with 3 children. He's the general manager of James North here in Zimbabwe. Is anybody here representing John Mangunjga from the RBZ? Okay, we don't have John. Rosemary Siachitema, the only lady on the panel. You know, she's very much active in consumerism in Zimbabwe, very active. She's the current executive director of the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe, and therefore this is a very relevant topic for her as well. She has management experience in various NGOs spanning, over a period of 14 years, and she has been associated with the Zimbabwe National Council of YMCAs, Zimbabwe Council of Churches. She has also been very much active in the small claims court in the various provinces of the country. She has got a very long CV, but I'm just trying to abridge it so that we have got more time for discussion. Denford Mutashu. Right, Denford Mutashu owns a company called Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, which is really an organization which is very much focused on retail business, and therefore this topic today is very much relevant to him as well. It's an umbrella body for the retail sector, and its clients are the various shop owners in the country. He has worked at Food World Supermarkets since 1997 and has occupied various positions from, as low as a cleaner, security officer. He became branch manager. He was a supervisor. He was a buyer. So he has got a wide range of experience in the retail sector through this company. Our next panelist is the one and only Xavier Mshosho. I think you know him. He's the Group Finance Director of Distribution Group in Africa, a subsidiary of Axia Corporation. He's very much involved with the Institute, so he doesn't need much introduction because of his service to the Institute in the past. So Xavier, welcome. I think that is our panel, and the discussion. Can we... I always feel embarrassed to tell people, can you clap for the panels, because maybe you don't appreciate them, but so our topic, as you've heard, it says price hikes. Is it madness or is this justified? So I'll just set the tone for the panelists, and I'll give each one of them 5 minutes. As you know, the government borrowing in Zimbabwe increased by 70% to 6.3 billion this year, and RTGS money expansion increased by 81% to 1.73 billion. And these are the fundamentals in which the pricing system is going to be discussed, of course. And coupled with that, you had the government overdraft increasing at the Reserve Bank. They're just borrowing from 2 billion to 5.2 billion. Even the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange was not left behind, because the overall index increased by 139% over the past 12 months. The government deposit, the bank deposits base increased as well from 6.5 billion to 8.5 billion, 31%. So therefore, when we look at these values increasing, one is saying, is it real value being created or not? And then, of course, the country itself moved from a deflation position 12 months ago. We were worrying about deflation, now to 3.5% overall inflation, which is about 5% increase in inflation. So therefore, it is in this context that we are going to request our panelists to say, okay, the price movements in the country, is it madness or is it justified? And can inflation be, or these price movements when we go to Pick and Pay to TM, can that be immune from these macroeconomic variables in the country? So I will request Sifelani Jawangwe to give us his position on that. 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, 5 minutes. We've been dealing with this a lot at CZI, so we've got quite a lot to say about it, but I'll try to say the little bit I can. Now, the beauty of this is that I'm talking to those that were affecting the prices. They would calculate it, say today's price is so much. Now, the pricing, I'll put it in the perspective of that. It's a symptom of the actual problems that we've been having in the economy. And as we are all aware, there is a shortage of foreign currency. And this problem is actually not new. We are aware that those that were around, we were already in business, reading research reports. Right from 1980, the allocated currency was never freely available. You had to apply for it. You had to get it. So this is nothing new. So what we have, so the question then becomes, what is it that we need? For me, what is it that we need to do about it? It's a production problem. Because you have to generate. If there is something, a result that is in short supply, it will be in the black market. That's a reflection that you don't have adequate resources of that particular one. We have had discussions around command issue earlier on. Just my comment on that is that the need was there. We needed grain at a certain level, and there was no plan from all the players in the value chain. So government then came up, and yes, we've had production. So the question then that looks at it on sustainability, it's that what is the private sector plan that will then take over from that to fund and ensure that we have the available grain required. So this is talking to the production problem that I was talking about. Now, as a country, we're not generating enough currency, but we have got we know of our mining sector, which has got over 60 exploitable minerals. We are one of the 2 countries that produce the bulk of the world's platinum, but we are poor. So the issue is we cannot survive exporting commodities. Going again to the production problem, we need to value it. And so the question becomes, how do we utilize the resources that we have to create value for the country, from human capital to all this agricultural potential? We heard about the 5 million hectares that are available. The issue is there a vision? We have a vision that has been spoken about by His Excellency, and I think the other parties have also spoken about a particular vision that is being targeted. But that will not deliver what we want. We now need a strategy. How do the sector players come together and say, here is our sector strategy to deliver on that production? That will then deliver the currency that we need. Because for as long as there is inadequate currency, we will remain with the situation that we have. Where at the moment the prices, I think when you look at it, the prices for basic commodities, including fuel, have basically remained where they were for the last 3 years, because there has been allocation of currency on a one-to-one by the RBZ. Everyone else has been left to fend for themselves. So this is the challenge that that we have. And unless we come up with a plan that delivers the 2030 vision, then we'll not get there. We'll not produce as much as we should be achieving. Now, having looked at this vision, we have looked at it, and it has revealed that for Zimbabwe to achieve that 2030 vision of becoming a middle income economy, we need to be performing at an average of about 10% per annum growth rate. By implication, it means all the businesses represented here need to have a growth target of 10%. Otherwise, we are all targeting to fail. This reveals the resources that we need to look at, the resources that will deliver this 10% growth in our businesses and also in our various sectors. And also we need to ask the same of our suppliers in order to produce. you'll notice that my presentation is based more on production, because we need to export more, we need to reduce some of the products that we are importing, and most importantly, we need to improve the technical, the complexity of our economy. In other words, the nature of the products that we are currently producing. And this is a program that we also have been working on, SCZI. The other issue that we also need to address to stabilize this is the issue of the currency or the fiscal regime. Yes, the issue about generating, the issue about government spending more than it is generating is resulted in the overdraft with the RBZ, has resulted in the imbalance that we have, which has also fueled the black market, which has fueled prices. But from a business perspective, what we're also seeing, inflation is not all bad. Inflation within the 3 to 6% is probably what we need to grow, because we saw the challenges that we had with the deflation. So at the moment, from most of our members, in spite of the challenges that they are having with the currency allocation, I think some of you may confirm this or at least tell me otherwise, most of the businesses are selling everything that they are making. The consumer demand that's out there, whether you're manufacturing water, you're manufacturing beds, you are seeing the retail performance is at an all-time high. So the question is, how can we tap into what's currently happening? To what extent the command contribute to creating this demand, and which is causing the currency to be under demand, to be insufficient, and to what extent is that pushing again price instability?
Thank you. Can we thank Sifelan, please? Thank you. Right, Denford, Mutasha.
Thank you. I have a couple of things, and of course my presentation was on PowerPoint, and it can be shared for those that may want to have a look at it. But from a retail perspective, there are certain things that we need to look at. For example, foreign currency availability, both for the manufacturers and the retailers themselves, for them to be able to import raw materials as well as those finished goods that are currently not available in the economy at prices that will be affordable to the consumers. And also looking at the cash situation in the country, I think we need to have a look at that and say, do we need to continue on the current trajectory where the majority of Zimbabweans are not banking their cash? They deliberately keeping the cash at their homes, probably because of the lack of confidence in the financial services sector. But I think we need a policy that will guide the nation on how we can ensure that both individuals and corporates start to adopt their habit of banking. I think that will make cash available within the formal circulation. If it is not circulating within the formal platforms, I think we will continue to create problems, because this cash is abundantly available within the informal sector. The rate at which Zimbabweans are smuggling, it's something that is quite scary, because the smuggling that is taking place, it's not like someone is smuggling a bottle of cooking oil, but trucks are coming into the economy, and this is something that is quite dangerous for any economy, especially a young economy like Zimbabwe, if we're looking at it from 2009, with all the other fundamentals that Svelane has spoken about, like the issue of government expenditure, budget deficit and how it is being funded, the treasury bills that have been injected into the economy and how they've also influenced the amount of money in RTGS balances in the economy, and also expanding the demand in the economy. And this demand, unfortunately, is not being met by supply. And since we adopted the market forces to determine prices in the economy, demand currently is actually outstripping supply because of the challenges that a lot of manufacturers are facing. Consumption is also high. Yes, exports are high, but if we look at exports, the relationship between the exports and
the imports is something that is quite staggering because we continue to import. And if you look at the import madness, I've got a couple of products that we put together that are being imported, which we are actually not supposed to be importing, which we actually can focus on import substitution. And it is a challenge to manufacturers to look at that. Polyethylene, bottled water, uncooked pasta, broken rice, paper, flasks and jars. For example, flasks and jars, we imported since February to June an average of 5.9 million. And yet last year, we imported 3.6 million worth of flasks and jars. Corrugated paper, 4.1 million last year. This year, 4 million and 80. Sacks and bags, 2.5 million February to June last year, compared to 4.9 million this year. Of course, on one end, that might signify an increase in output in terms of the production sector, but I think it is something that we always want to look at. But if you look at the price, food price movements, I think generally prices have been going up. And if you look at the period March to the current period, I think most basic products have gone up. If you look at sugar, for example, it has gone up. But these are the products that we are saying this should be monitored. Speculative pricing. Yes, there is speculative pricing because people are taking advantage of the current situation where there is serious informality in the industry. And of course, industry protection, the issue of SI 122, SI 64 is something that we also need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Denford. Can we appreciate him, please? Right. Rosemary?
Thank you very much and good morning. I'm going to tackle this issue very literally. Imagine September the 17th. You woke up and cooking oil was hovering on $7, $8. That's when SI64 came into being. By the end of day, that same price had started going down to $4, $5. For me, that is a madness scenario. What should move prices of that kind of magnitude? Imagine walking out in the Harare streets. We say there is no money, and you find that Eastgate is littered with people who solicit to sell you money. They've got wads of money. Where are they getting it from? I understand that was called illegal. It's against the law. Why is it still out there on the streets? Now, from a consumer perspective, not from a manufacturer or retailer, if you wake up and you are told the meat that you were buying at $3.80 has gone up to $8.50, does that not signify some kind of madness? Even if it means that there are some things that are happening in the environment of an economic nature, a shortage of money or whatever. So maybe we've got two scenarios that are there of real madness and of what is happening in the market. These are not new things. If you look at the baskets and what we've said in the past, look at the scenario 2006, 7, and 8. That scenario was that no things in the supermarket, but outside at night there are trucks and trucks with goods and other services. There is some little madness in us here in Zimbabwe in terms of profiteering and always wanting to get 100% profit. Now, when you look at other countries, when they talk about the margin that they put on their products, they talk about a very small percentage. But here in Zimbabwe, it has to be 100%. That is madness. Now, what we lack as consumers when we're looking at our system is that get to hear a lot of things coming out of the mouths of economists, and they are saying that, oh, prices in Zimbabwe are very high, there should be internal devaluation, and it goes on and on. We wake up and the business community have said we want the US dollar, it is a stable currency. Isn't that madness where we are now? I think from a consumer perspective, definitely there is a lot of profiteering that is happening in Zimbabwe. So price hikes on a bigger level are a sign of a little bit of madness. And that little bit of madness is trying to gain more than what you're supposed to from something which you have not actually made, that you have bought as a finished product. By the end of 2017, or even 2017, we had already indicated and told the people in policy-making bodies that there is the three-tier pricing. And this is more than 3 years down the line, and we're still talking about three-tier pricing. We push consumers to use the system of cards. There's nothing wrong in that, but we push them into a system where there are going to be places where they are not going to be able to use it. And at the same time, in the banks, you are not giving them money. What is the expectation of such a situation? Madness. This is just that we talk about now we're using, I think, figures of about 85–90% people using swipe cards. But we have not changed our transport system to use swipe cards. What do you expect a person who has not been able to get money anyway? They will buy it on the streets. They will buy it from any place that they can get to. We don't talk about banks anymore. They are not useful institutions for people. Go onto the street. That is your bank of the day. So, yes, my colleagues, we've talked before in other instances, and I keep on going to the same position. We've been talking about productivity. And the first thing that they will tell you is that cooking oil has gone 100%. We do not drink cooking oil. What about all the other products? Let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rose, for that passionate presentation on the pricing. I think you've got a lot more to say. Saviors, please.
Thank you, Elijah. I'll just bring in a balance here from a technical point of view and also from a practical point of view. My sister Rose, I'll calm you down. She says she's not mad. She's okay. All right. Okay, I'll just start by basic principles of economics. What causes price hikes? Okay, economics distinguishes between two types of inflation, which is demand pull and cost push. So both, they will result in increase in prices. For example, demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand for goods and services in an economy rises more rapidly than an economy's productive capacity. All right? One potential shock to aggregate demand might come from a central bank that rapidly increases the supply of money. That's in a normal scenario, in a stable country. Cost push inflation, on the other hand, occurs when prices of production, process inputs increase, e.g. rapid wage increases, rises in raw material prices. All these things can actually cause prices to go up. But what's the story in Zim? All right. Number one driver of price increase in Zimbabwe, I would largely say in Zim, the causes is cost push factors. The first one is the severe cash and liquidity crisis in the country, which has resulted in people using the payment platform Rose was talking about. EcoCash, very expensive and all that. But you need to understand that these are solutions coming through to help people to deal with the crisis. But the crisis itself is increasing cost of doing business in the country, which cannot be absorbed by the players in the market. Because as companies, we cannot absorb the costs, isn't it? We have to pass them on to the consumer. So these are the practical issues on the ground. Number two, foreign currency shortage in the market. You find that it's common knowledge that Forex is not available at banks. RBZ, there's no Forex. So it means every business has to look for its own foreign currency. And the cost of Forex has got as high as 100% Svelan. And that's not madness, it's reality. Unfortunately, Rose, that's the real risk the business faces. If the business has to absorb that, you won't find them tomorrow. The third thing is bond notes. The RBZ governor, I was going to be happy if he was here. I was going to challenge him about bond notes. Bond note is not the same value as the actual hard currency. So that's a myth. So in itself, it created a problem called speculative behavior. People use the bond note to speculate. So in its own, it created a pricing system, which you were speaking about. You said the three-tier pricing system. So bond notes created that. Cards created that. Hard currency created that also. But I'll give you more reason why it's like that. The fourth thing is reliance on imports. As local manufacturers, like Svelan and other guys, they have declined in production because there is no foreign currency. They've got dead plant and equipment. They have no labor. People have gone out of the country. So there's so many pressures on production. Then now we've got some pseudo local manufacturers who are not actually manufacturing. They're importing and repackaging, and they're protected by the government. And obviously they're not producing, and the cost of buying those raw materials or finished products and repackaging is as high as just like anybody else importing as well. So this created a situation where it appears like there's production when there is no production. So it won't necessarily do away with the actual fundamental problems in the economy. So the issue of cost push inflation, how does it affect our price hikes? The simple pricing mechanism is cost plus markup. You get me right? So your cost now includes the cost of funds. Svelan, you agree with that? Denford, you agree with that? Rose, do you agree with that? When you import a product, you pay duty, and you pay the provider of foreign currency a commission because there's no forex. So that gives you the cost. Then you add a markup. Rose, I must assure you that the market largely, as retailers and distributors, we maintain a consistent markup, but the cost is changing daily. I wanted you to understand this simple thing because sometimes it appears like business people are unreasonable. But the reality is, generally, distributors are marking up 9% for local products and 20% maximum for imported products. I want to assume retailers are doing the same as well. So the price hikes rose. There's no one making 100% profit. But there's someone taking 100% commission on Forex. That's what is actually happening on the cost side of things. So the concept is, as a business, there's what we call replacement cost. I cannot sell my stock at a price which I cannot replace it. So if the government wants to intervene, if Rose wants to complain, and I sell below my replacement cost, within 6 months I will close. That's a fact, Rose. So,
thank you.
The reality is, in conclusion, Elisha, price hikes is not price madness. It is governance madness. The government is failing to bring the solutions to actually solve the fundamental issues that have gone wrong in the economy, which will result in stability, in production, and prosperity of this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Xavier. It's good to have in a panel, some are saying it's price madness, others are saying it's not, and there is a number of variables at play there. Now, we have got about 10 minutes for questions, so which means if we say on average 1 minute per question, we can take 6, 7 questions. And questions? Yes, the gentleman in a striped t-shirt here. And then there's Mr. Nyajeka there. How many mics do we have? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation.
Okay, excuse me, can you say your name?
My name is Jade Sokodai. Okay. Yeah. I've got a question for Xavier. He seems to have discounted the effect of demand pull inflation. But I want to ask him, like, what do you think is the effect of the maturing TBs on aggregate money supply and the impact of that on inflation? I ask because our money supply growth or our total money supply was around 5 billion in 2016. And that increased by about 50% to 8 billion in 2017. Is that not a major impact? Thank you.
Xavier?
I would agree with you to say it to an extent, yes, it is. But I want you to see this picture. The TBs, what they are doing is they're creating what do we call RTGS money. You are paying civil servants with that money, and they're going to the banks to get real money. Some of them are taking foreign trips, and they apply at banks, and they get dollar for dollar to swipe in foreign countries. So basically, you are creating a more shortage of the foreign currency. So that's the reason why the cost of money is going up. The cost of forex is going up. If you look at it, is the demand of products is kind of inelastic, although there's some elasticity there, but it's inelastic because you are creating liquidity for people to continue buying, but you are also creating shortage of foreign currency to make the rate going up. And there's no local production. So if people stop buying at high prices, people stop importing, and there's nothing on the shelves. So it's a vicious cycle. So the fact is, you have to import, and you have to eat. So you have to buy. That's the reason why there's so much stress in the country. People are not happy because they need to have the same lifestyle, but their money is no longer enough. All of us in this room, if we convert our earnings into real currency, we earn nothing. That's the fact.
Okay, thank you, Xavier. Both will? Yeah, you can go.
Hi, my name.
Oh, I thought it was both.
The name is Kunomozi Vicky. I also want to paint a picture like Rose was saying, is that we continue saying there's no foreign currency in the country. But as retailers, what are your shelves showing? Are they empty? As a sign that there's no foreign currency, or they're actually full, more of those foreign products which require foreign currency. So who is driving the rates? Yes, there is the government, but are the retailers not playing also a big part in driving that rate? So do we need the Lays, the chips, or the pecan nuts that you're importing that you claim need to keep you in business at the detriment of actually killing the country by continue fueling this market which you are paying premiums for?
Thank you. Denford, if you can answer that question as you represent the retailers, if you go into TM, okay, bazaars, 80% of the products are imported. And are you not contributing to the exacerbation of the foreign currency shortage?
I think 80% could be an overstatement. Currently, there is production that is taking place from the local manufacturers. And if you look at the big brands in terms of the retail space, their priority is to buy from local manufacturers as long as the manufacturer, the supplier, or the distributor has good product. Probably the only time that formal retailers cross the borders is as and when there is not supply from, or short supply from the local manufacturers. But if you look at, I mean, the second part of your question is whether we are contributing to the shortage of foreign currency. But I think let's look at, for example, imported inflation. We've got quite a number of products so far which we are prioritizing in terms of forex allocation. If you check your statistics, they will tell you that this year we have already outjumped the allocations, rather the importation of energy like fuels, petrol, diesel, by a huge a percentage. For example, I think last year we imported at this particular time about 123 million worth of fuel, but currently I'm sure we are sitting at 190 million. Okay. Yes, it may signify a jump in terms of the requirements in the economy, and that the economy is growing, and indeed the Zimbabwean economy is growing, but it's now growing at a much faster rate than the authorities can be able to supply the lubrications like the foreign currency supply, which should back up the manufacturers and the distributors.
Okay, I've got time for 2 more questions. Okay, Professor Mbig.
I don't understand why we have this shortage, because the true currency is gold, and we have it. What needs to happen is for the key role players to stop privatizing gold deals. Because the true currency, you don't need to convert gold. Every province has gold. So this is basically a self-created pain by political key role players.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, you have the gold, and gold is one of the biggest components in the forex generation. But we have to face the reality that the macroeconomic fundamentals of the country are such that if you are importing 4.9 billion every year and you are exporting 3.5 billion and you've got a trade deficit of 1.2 billion, so you are going to run short of foreign currency. That's going to happen. And therefore, we have to address the fundamentals which lead to the shortage. What you have seen the Arabs they're doing is tinkering with a very clear crisis, because the Arabs doesn't generate forex. So if you are running at a deficit of 2 billion per annum, where is the forex going to come from? And therefore that goes back to the issue of saying, when are you going to address the functional currency of the country? Yes, Professor, as you know, we have to look at the gold standard and also the currency board to see how we can address those issues. 2 more questions?
Sorry, let me just come through on gold. Just to speak about gold, I think as a country, we've got about 13 million tons of gold in Zim. But since 1980, I think the Arabic statistics will tell you that we've only managed to mine plus or minus 580 tons. So talking about that, I think it is an issue of capacitating both the formal and informal gold miners, so so that they can actually produce more and plug the leakages, because a lot of gold is also being smuggled out of the country.
Okay. One more question. Oh, yeah. Yeah, say your name, please.
Thank you. My name is Derek Odote. And the comment that I wanted to make is that the shortage of currency, we've agreed, has been with us pre-independence.
Can you speak up but into the mic?
The shortage of currency has been with us pre-independence. This is not a new phenomenon. The second thing is, when I listen to a lot of these conversations, we consistently talk about the discipline that seems to be there in coming up with cost-plus methods of passing on that cost to the consumer. But I think the real question that we never really seem to address is who is determining the premium which is costed into the price. And when you look at the spikes in the premiums that are paid on currency, it's clear that these are not being determined by any rational means. It's literally somebody doing the maths and saying, I want to get X by changing Y dollars. And until we start addressing that, we will never really address the issue. And I totally get where Rose is coming from, that at the end of the day, even when you've looked at the process of getting to the final price, that final price does not make sense, which is why it can be reversed by up to 100% in the space of 10 minutes.
Thank you for your comment. Rose, I've got about 60 seconds. Would you like to comment?
I think the day we get a Consumer Protection Act in place, consumers will be on a level playing field where they can challenge some of the thinking that has happened in this country, where we think that whatever mess we make, the consumers are supposed to sweep it up and keep quiet. If you hear in other countries where collusions and what have you in businesses that have happened, class action suits have been put in place and consumers have stood for their rights. So, up with the new parliament, a consumer protection law will be in place to deal with some of the vagaries that we've seen in the market. And I won't have to get a lecture on economics. I'm talking about practical, what our people feel when they go into a supermarket or in any retail shop and they don't understand what's going on. No matter how much you say X plus Y equals to P squared, the people you are working that equation on have to understand what you're doing. And some of the policies and reversal of policies that have happened in a day's time, consumers get confused and they don't understand what the heck is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, excuse me.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of our panel. I want to thank Rosemary Saviors, Denford, and Sifelani for their contributions to this debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the moderator. Yes, thank you. We'd like the following people to come and present our token of appreciations to the panel. Hope Nyakomo. Please could you present to Mr. Jabamgwe? I would like